Breaking news, the Federal Reserve has officially released their first Instagram reel.
Hi, I'm Jay Powell. I'm the chair of the Federal Reserve. And I want you to know that the Federal Reserve is now on Instagram and Threads. The Fed is America's central bank, working to promote a healthy economy and a strong financial system. That mission starts with you.
Me?
We'll be posting here with information, links to events, and other resources about how Fed decisions affect you, your family, and your community.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. I'm sure everybody's looking very much forward to the rest of these Fed IG reels, but that being said, having a look at Bitcoin, it was just a joke. Clearly, now I'm hearing the rumblings through Twitter, on YouTube, in the community. Everybody's like, oh, it's a failed pump. Look, this was all just a big trap. They faked us out. Well, yes, we did have a major retracement from about 28,600 all the way down to currently 27.4. But the thing is, like I wanted to point out yesterday is, again, if you guys follow me, you know that resistance and support is very important. And we had multiple resistances right here. So it's not uncommon. In fact, it's like over 80% of the time, you generally do see some kind of a retest to sort of reclaim that area, flip it into support, and then have the bounce back. So we haven't even gotten down to that level just yet. So you can't be freaking out saying that it was totally failed just yet at this point, right? Now, I do know that a lot of people are worried about the DXY, which continues to pump. And again, we're having the S&P doing another red day, right? So was it just a flash in the pan? Did Powell just throw a wrench in the gears? Is everything ruined? Well, I do want to talk about that because I have discussed the decoupling of Bitcoin, and I know there's a lot of skeptics that just don't believe that it's happening over time, but I want to show you some evidence today, okay? We're going to look at some hardcore data, and it may actually persuade you if you are on the other side of the fence. Now, obviously, interest rates may actually stay higher for longer, right? That's something that's happening. In fact, jobs reports came out in positive, which you would think would be a good thing, but actually it sends the reverse signal to the Fed. So what could potentially happen? And, you guys may be familiar with the good old US debt clock if you've ever seen it. And, well, the situation with this ultimately is that it's not really looking too good for the US. And this could potentially, not trying to freak anyone out, but you may have heard the term of a death debt spiral. Now, if that was in fact to happen to the US, how would that affect Bitcoin? Is it something that we should worry about? Well, what I want to talk about today is something very, very interesting. We are going to read between the lines. We're going to not listen to the FUD. We're going to look at the data, all right? We're going to look at what is going on right now on the exchanges, with the Bitcoin holders, with the stable coins, and can we actually debunk a myth that is very, very common in the space? That's what I want to do today, guys. I want to debunk one of the biggest myths in crypto right now. So make sure that you stick around to the end. I think you're going to find a lot of value out of this video. And, we do have a little bit of SBF content we're going to sprinkle in on the end, maybe. But let's start over here real quick. Before I get into anything, I just want to give like a little bit of a warning. You may have seen this Satoshi Nakamoto account that kind of came live again after 5 years. Guys, I don't know, they say Craig Wright may own this. Not too sure, but I can tell you right now, this is not Satoshi. I would bet all my holdings on it that this isn't Satoshi. So moving on, I want to just start off with this clip. Now, this was Stanley Druckenmiller. This guy's worth over $6.2 billion. And this was the statement that he had made, okay? This was on live TV. And by the way, Bitcoin was at around $15,300 at this time.
I have warmed up to the fact that Bitcoin could be an asset class that has a lot of attraction to it as a store of value to both millennials and the new West Coast money. And as you know, they got a lot of it. It's been around for 13 years, and with each passing day, it picks up more of its stabilization of a brand. So I own many, many more times gold than I own Bitcoin. But frankly, if the gold bet works, the Bitcoin bet will probably work better because it's thinner and more liquid and has a lot more beta to it.
So over on Twitter, I had pointed out the fact that this is the gold chart for the entire year, right? This is January 1st, and this is where we are now. So literally, breaking news, guys. as of today, gold has completely retraced all of its gains that it made in 2023. So gold is at the exact same levels that it was essentially at the beginning of the year, where, obviously if we go to Bitcoin, and we go to where we were essentially in the beginning of the year, we go back right here to, January, which was right in this region. Yeah, Bitcoin is up over 60%, right? So why is this happening? What is going on that's actually making this happen with Bitcoin? Well, could it be possibly, like Stockholder has pointed out, that gold is actually starting to sell off like it did in the banking crisis of March? Are we about to pick up where we left off? Are heavy bond losses headed to margin calls and forced liquidation of gold? Well, the good news for Bitcoin holders, most funds don't actually have any Bitcoin to sell to cover the bond losses, and a lot of Bitcoin is in the hands of investors who saw the sovereign debt crisis coming. And this is just showing you how you're seeing all these guys like Druckenmiller, like in yesterday's video, right? They are waking up. Now, here's the thing that scares everyone, right? So you had the job openings coming in higher than expected at 9.6. They had expected 8.8. This means that unemployment is still in control, and that means the Fed will be able to hold these rates for longer. But how much longer is the question? Like Sven Henrik points out, soaring yields, partially driven by insatiable debt issuance by the US Treasury, are tightening conditions so fast that before you know it, the Fed may either be forced to pause their quantitative tightening or outright start becoming a buyer of US debt again, right? Like Senator Lummis came out, the deficit doubling to $2 trillion in the last year should be a flashing red warning sign to everyone who cares about America's future. Trust me, we're getting to the point. I don't want to lose you guys there. This is what I'm getting to. Our nation is quickly approaching a death debt spiral that will bury future generations. We need to end Washington's spending addiction. But here's the problem. Okay, the higher interest rates go, the higher inflation is going to go, because the higher interest rates go, the larger the deficit. The larger the deficit, the faster the currency printer will go burr. The faster the currency printer goes burr, the faster inflation rises. And when the inflation rises and the money printer goes burr, where do people park their funds? Now, you're probably saying, well, why would they run to Bitcoin? Well, Max Kaiser says, this is where we're at. Rates won't stop inflation. It'll stoke higher inflation. The vicious circle is unrelenting. We have entered a death debt spiral. Everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. Now, this is the national debt, as I pulled up in the beginning of the video. You could see that this is going up and up and up and up. But here's something very interesting that a lot of people don't pay attention to. If we come over here to the US federal tax revenue, what is this number doing? Is this number going up or down? It's going down. This number is going down while the US national debt is going up, okay? So that means that the government is receiving less taxes. Well, why are they receiving less taxes? Well, simply because we're not seeing that stimulation. We're seeing people not spending their money. I mean, the rates are literally discouraging people from borrowing, which are discouraging people from making investments, which then are, not allowing these companies, you're seeing layoffs, right? They're not spending. And so overall, the US federal tax revenue is falling. And you know how the US feels about their taxes, right? So this is just to point out another thing. They're actually losing taxes because of their situation, right? So that's one thing, to just all of that, just to mention why they're not going to be able to maintain. We also have the Bitcoin ETF that Tim Draper had actually spoke about, saying he's surprised that it's taken this long. He doesn't understand why the SEC would approve futures and not spot trading, but he does expect that when this does happen, it will bring more light on the unbanked who can use Bitcoin to participate in the global economy. And we've gone over these numbers time and time again, right? So what is really happening? Well, this is a report that came out from Bitfinex Alpha. This is a completely free report, by the way. You guys can get this. You can download this anywhere you want. And basically what they've talked about that we know is that Bitcoin exchange reserves have hit the lowest levels in 5 years as long-term supply is still active. Now, again, and I got to give another shout out to British Hodl. I'm sure a lot of you know who he is at this point. He had actually mentioned that, everybody says, well, if these guys are buying, if all this is happening, why is the price not moving enough? Well, it's because right now there is still enough liquidity. There's enough for them. But we are hitting a liquidity crisis, a liquidity crunch. It's happening. And what happens is when you get down to that last little amount, right? That last little bit of margin, that is when you see these, what they refer to as God candles, right? That is when you see those big moves. We're not quite there yet. And this is a good thing for the average person looking to accumulate Bitcoin before we do hit these levels of liquidity crisis. We're getting close. On the flip side, so we're seeing exchange reserves hit the lowest levels. Check this out. On the flip side, sentiment data has pointed out that Tether's top 10 addresses holding their amount in 6 months have increased their buying power. So USDT on exchanges is up 24.7%, up from 17 in just 4 months. What is this telling you? Well, there's not a lot of Bitcoin on exchanges. There are almost 25% more USDT on exchanges. So why do people send things to exchanges or park things on exchanges? Well, if you were sending your Bitcoin to the exchange, that would probably mean you'd want to sell it. We're not seeing that. We're seeing the long-term holders and even some of the short-term holders now starting to say, I'm not selling, I'm holding. Meanwhile, big whales, 10 largest whales, sending massive amounts of USDT to the exchanges. What are they waiting for? What are they going to do with it? Well, I mean, a 5-year-old would probably be able to tell you they are looking to buy Bitcoin. We've even seen the Bitcoin dominance. If you're going to look at, like Trader Tardigrade pointed out, it is ticking higher. Why is it doing this? Well, it's showing that investors are obviously a little bit freaked out with all the SEC stuff, and they're moving into Bitcoin. You're seeing a lot of the money that's already in the crypto space moving out of the altcoins into Bitcoin, right? So even if we're not getting that fresh new capital immediately, you are seeing a lot of people rotating into Bitcoin. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact. This is a Bitcoin dominance. This is what's actually happening right now. And again, I know what you're thinking, but the DXY, how could the DXY be pumping and then Bitcoin's going to pump with it? Well, actually, I was actually going to make this chart myself, and then I saw that Bitcoin Archive had put this out. And if you really see the difference right here, you don't necessarily always have dollar strength being Bitcoin weakness and vice versa. For example, after the 2018 bear market, Bitcoin went up together with the DXY for about 18 months. So the dollar got stronger and Bitcoin also got stronger, right? So basically, if you have the weakness, you get a parabolic run, strength, end of the bull market. But sometimes even if you have these slow grinds where it does still go up, which is, I mean, it's a little more parabolic right now than it was back then. But nevertheless, we have actually been able to see that it's not always DXY goes up, Bitcoin goes down. Well, history proves us that that's not the case. Now, obviously, when you have these strong declines, then yes, you have the quantitative easing. We're not quite there yet. We're quite far from it. But as I've explained to you, maybe we're not actually that far away. So getting back to the TA from yesterday, I just wanted to do an update on this for you guys. So you can see we got this rejection off this 200 daily, which again, the 200 weekly, which they're basically at the same level. Now look at this. Remember I told you we had to break above this 100? Well, if you look at it right now, currently we are still sitting above that. In fact, it's holding us as temporary support. The other thing I want to point out is on the lower time frame right here. I could switch to the 4, but it's basically the same. What do we have right here? We have a low, and then we have a higher low, right? And then here we have a high, and then here we have a higher high, right? So this rejection into this rejection was a higher high rejected by a higher low. A lower high, I'm sorry, right? So this is not the same as this. These are opposites. You actually have a rejection that was higher thus far. So although that rejection could send the signal, oh no, it's a trap, we're going to lose this, at the same time, we are now starting to move higher, right? So now you have this peak, and this peak. So now you have 3 higher highs and you have 2 higher lows. Okay, so that essentially is showing you that market structure is moving to the upside. Could this be invalidated? Yes, it has not been invalidated yet. Again, the fact that the 200 weekly had been such a massive moving average that we were held under, you can see that we are struggling right there. And we have this convergence, which could potentially be a death cross on the weekly. But we had a death cross on the daily. What did it do? Nothing. Pushed us down a few percentage and we came right back up to it anyway. And again, hash ribbon signals, which have an 88% chance of success, are in fact flashing, right? And we did close this candle above the EMA ribbon. Now, technically, we are actually sitting right at the top of the ribbon, which is good so far. Staying above the 89, that's like bonus. That's cherry on top. Really, just kind of staying above it, or at least staying to the center half, to the top half of it, is usually pretty bullish. But what I do like is the fact that we have temporarily averted that flip. So I don't know, could we get the flip? Possibly, but we haven't gotten it yet. So it is showing that the bulls are at least attempting. The bulls are at least trying to maintain that structure, right? And, you can kind of see that this may end up right here. This may end up turning into like a bit of a W pattern, right? Something like that. Would I call it a double bottom? Not really, because we're way too high for that. But I would say that we are hitting that area where, again, I talked about the significance of this blue zone, this blue box territory right here. This was the major support, and now it's acting as resistance. I don't know what my chart just did. So ultimately, really nothing is happening so far. And again, if you were going to play the doom and gloom scenario, you wanted to break the short-term structure, where would you head? Well, the first would be 25.3, which, as I said, has been an amazing opportunity for longing. Again, if you guys do want to check out the tutorials popping up above, there's over 66,000 in bonus, absolutely free if you guys want to check it out. All those links are below. But you can see right here, the next level of interest on volume range is 23. So if you really think that we have to have the ultimate retest, maybe we come back down here, dance around in this area before continuing to the upside, essentially creating that base. Remember, I showed you yesterday that Bitcoin had spent more time in the $16,000 to $30,000 range than any other range in history. And we know that the longer you stay in a range, the stronger that range becomes, right? So it will be difficult to break and hold above that. Breaking and holding above 30, especially 32,000, that's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, okay? We may even get rejected a few times. We may even crab sideways. But ultimately, once we do flip that, the odds of us ever, and I hate to make absolute saying we're never going to go back down, but really, the odds of then falling below that level again, probably not going to happen. Most likely not going to happen. Could it happen? Yes. Most likely won't happen. And again, if you look at the futures charts right here, what are we doing? Well, we have this parallel channel that started out here. We broke above it, and we've respected the heart line once. We've respected the top of it multiple times. And even though we are trending downwards, you could see the significance of once again hitting this level right here and hitting this level right here, right? It's making an X, right? So you have two resistances. That explains why we had that pullback. But again, if we continue sideways, eventually you're coming to this apex. So that could potentially take you to, I mean, really seriously, it could take you to mid-November, right? Before we have an answer on that. And, again, just pointing out, one of the most important EMAs, and keep in mind, we did have this golden cross, by the way, on the 20 and the 50, but the 21 exponential, which is this green line right here, very, very close to the 20, but they're a little bit different. Exponentials are a little bit better for shorter term price action. And zooming in right here, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Look at exactly where we're being supported. Okay, so these are just all things that we have to pay attention to. And again, until we lose this major trend, which I don't believe we're going to, we could, but until we do, there's really no reason to freak out because Bitcoin has been on this upwards trend, pretty much mimicking some of the exact downwards trends with these blue zone territory support. Again, I'm not going to go over all the fractals, but until we lose this major upward slope, I can't really freak out and I can't really get like uber bearish, right? So that's basically that for today, guys. Now, do we have a little bit of, is there a little bit of FUD right now? There's a little bit of FUD going on, for example, with SBF. So, you had Rover was saying Binance is hit with a class action lawsuit over alleged FTX sabotage claims. This is referred to by a series of tweets made by CZ in early November. The tweets are claimed to have had a significant impact on FTX's fate. And then on November 6th, they had mentioned that they were going to start liquidating their tokens. I don't remember if you guys remember that. That pretty much is what started the whole sell-off, right? But again, this just kind of sounds very suspicious. Like, we're going to go after CZ because he tweeted about sort of being suspicious and he didn't want to be allocated, or they didn't want to hold FTT token because of what they had been told or what they thought might have been happening. So this is kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. Which came before what? Well, at the end of the day, was CZ the reason that SBF did what he did? Is CZ the actual reason that FTX crashed? No, the reason that FTX the exchange went down and the token crashed is ultimately because of what these guys were doing. It was just a matter of time, right? It was just a matter of time. They were standing on the edge of the cliff. All they needed was a push. So I think, I'm not saying CZ is or isn't or does or doesn't do things. I don't know, but I think it's hilarious that they're going to blame it on CZ. I mean, this is the guy right here attempting to block witness testimony ahead of his trial. They've asked Judge Kaplan to deny the DOJ's request to permit an FTX customer to testify remotely. So all of this is going to be happening today. But does anybody, just for fun, does anybody remember when this happened?
I just want to let you know, jail's not that bad. It's always, but it's not the worst thing ever. So don't fret if that. I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, it's not that bad.
Good to know.
Sam?
Sam.
All right, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Again, if you do want to check out CoinCatch, they are a very high liquid exchange. I've enjoyed using them. They have very high limits for non-KYC. If you're interested, obviously, I can't tell anyone to do whatever you want to do. That's on you. You know, decentralized, centralized, you have to make that decision. But I do have tons of bonuses and an exclusive bonus for Crypto Zombie only subscribers. If you want, you will get that extra deposit. But that is it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Until next time, stay crypto. Check these free tutorials popping up right here, right now. And of course, peace out.